All right, here's Mr. Wu today on the Rollei 35. Hi, Mr. Wu. How you doing
Hello,
today?
good.
Good. Now we got a little bit different venue. I want to give a shout out to YL Camera. It's it can YL Camera is it's probably the biggest camera shop here in Kuala Lumpur, especially for pro gear. So if you're ever looking for professional camera gear like Hasselblad and all the accessories for podcasting or making movies, this is the place to come. So thank you very much uh, for letting us use your facility. And without further ado, Mr. Wu, what do we got today?
Yeah, today I got a small little box. So you got a small box, so you don't expect a big camera. So inside here, we have the Rollei 35. Introduced in the Photokina in 1966, then was first produced in Germany, and later on they set up a plant in Singapore in 1971, and it lasted 1 decade. So at that time, this was the smallest full-frame 35 millimeter camera. It's still small by today's standard, so it takes the full format film. It's an interesting camera. When you don't use the camera, the lens collapses, so it's very compact. Now, the person who designed and invented this camera was a gentleman by the name of Heinz Wask. He worked for the German company Virgin Camera. And when he was working on this, and he used the company's prototyping to make the prototype, and his boss was not too happy with it. When he showed the boss, he said, you're showing me this camera when I'm going to exit the camera business. You're going to close shop. So he closed shop, he got no work, he got the drawing of the camera, and then he went looking for some other company to adopt this camera. So he went to Kodak. Kodak said, we are not interested. He went to Leica, and they say, we are not interested. And finally, he found job in the Rollei company. The company was famous for making the twin lens Rolleiflex. So on his table, he had this camera, and passed by the owner of the Rollei company, Mr. Heinrich Wiesel, came by and looked at this camera and curious, and he said, okay, we will build this camera. So the Rollei company built this camera that Heinz was invented and designed. So they took all the components and used the Rollei vendors and sourced all the parts from the Rollei vendor, and they produced this camera, all metal, full frame, collapsible lens with a compo shutter. These two dials, those who have the Rolleiflex will be very familiar with. One dial for the shutter speed, one dial for the aperture, and it's cross-coupled with an exposure meter. This exposure meter was supplied by the German light meter company Gosen. So you got a Gosen meter, you got a view for the aperture and the shutter speed. They are interlinked, and you have the focusing. This focusing is scale focusing. There's no rangefinder. So you estimate the distance. There are two scales, one on top in meters and one in bottom in feet. So it depends on which one you are more familiar with. So they have a hot shoe at the bottom, so you can put a flash. Like my earlier Exacta, this one, when you put a flash underneath and you just click, the shadow will come from underneath and go up and look like a picture of Count Dracula. So I don't like that. So what I did, I had a few odd and end items I combined together. This is actually from the Olympus half-frame camera. So I put it here. So I can transfer the shoe to the top, no contact, cold shoe. And to make the electrical contact, I salvaged some part from the Nikon. This is a hot shoe to PC connector. So I put this here. So after the hot shoe, it has a PC cord. So I can mount the flash with a wire and plug it here. So now my flash will sit on top. So that's what I did.
Ingenious.
So of course I got to pull the lever out. Okay, now, yeah. So click, wind, and click. And because it has a leaf shutter, central shutter, the flash can sync even up to 500. So all the speeds is usable for flash. Half second down to 1/500. So it's not difficult to estimate the distance. And then with a good bright light, good depth of field, all the error can be taken care of. But I thought of another thing. I got somebody who had the external rangefinder. I might put an external rangefinder on top. So I put the double image on top and then I transfer the reading. So that way I can have good focusing. But actually it's quite okay. I always carry with me an electronic distance meter, so I can take a reading with the laser dot and take the reading and transfer it here. So this is Rollei 35, the first one. Later on, they make a faster lens. This is a Tessa, 40 mm. Aperture 3.5. Later on, they have a Sona, 40 mm, 2.8. And over the years, they had many variations. Some with better metering, some scaled down version with a selenium cell. And so all of them in total, there were many Rollei. Rollei. We tend to say Rollei. Actually, the way the Germans call it is Rollei. So then at one stage, they came up with another series. They call it the Rollei Classic. What they did is they put the shoe on top the right way, and they use exotic metal, titanium, platinum, you have it. And of course, the price went skyrocket. So to me, that type of camera is only good for the collector. Lenses are the same, so the functional advantage would be the position of the flash shoe. Other than that, the specs and optics remain the same. So that's another class of cameras which I don't normally venture into because I need to have deep pockets to be able to own them. So I prefer cameras that are just the man on the street can own and it works. So here we have Rollei 35, small camera.
Wow, beautiful.
Then it sits back here.
Yeah, so for all you collectors out there, take a look at the Rollei 35 or the Rollei 35. I'm sure you guys have seen it before. Wow, thank you, Mr. Wu.
Welcome.
And can't wait for the next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.